So in a bit under 80 days, we're supposed to set sail and head south towards the Mediterranean. And that's all pretty good. But when we bought the boat, we knew there was something we needed fixing. A lot of things actually. And most of those things we have covered. They have been fixed, which means the boat is practically ready to go sail. We've used it, so it works. But on that list of notorious to-dos, there's one point that we just kind of pushed in front of us the whole time because we didn't know what to do about it, and we weren't actually sure if the problem was that big. Until the last summer vacation, last year. We looked at it and we thought, well, is this part of the boat? Is that gonna hold the whole way to the Mediterranean? Is it going to work the way it should? And no. It wasn't, or it weren't going to do, because as it turns out, just about a week ago we started that project. That's the project about the notorious engine mounts, the thing that actually holds our engine to the boat, so it doesn't end up in the sea or rattles the whole boat apart. Now, we dove into that project last week, and yeah, I'm really glad we did it, because those engine mounts, they were just rubbish. A piece of, yeah, you probably know what I'm gonna say, but I'm not gonna say it. But I'm really glad we did it, because as I'm about to show you, if we didn't do that project, I don't think our boat would have held the whole way to the Med. At least not the engine, or the engine mounts, so to say. So let's rewind the tape a few days and head to the boat and see what we did about it. The engine mounts that we have at the moment, they don't exactly look new. I suspect them to be about 30 years old, just as the boat is. When we're going on the trip that we're going on, I would not be able to trust them lasting for the time that we need them. I knew I had to dive into this project at some point, but still, as I don't know anything about engines or engine mounts when I started out, it was kind of terrifying. So I googled my way to different kind of engine mounts, both from the original supplier and other kinds on Amazon or whatever I find them. What I found was a company in Spain called Ellebogen. I wrote them an email and said, well, listen up guys, I'm about to replace the engine mounts on our Yanmar engine. Which ones would you recommend? And within 24 hours I got a reply, and they recommended the ones I have here. We just received these not too long ago, and I must say, looks pretty good. So they all come in these boxes. We have 200 kilos on one side of the engine and 150 on the other, and they come in these nice little boxes. And for someone who doesn't know anything about engine mounts, I would say this looks pretty solid, well built, nice quality. They have some really good videos online showing how to install them and how to do the different things. So that's a big comfort for someone like me who doesn't know anything when I just started out. So these are the ones we're going to install today. What I need to do is to disconnect the propeller shaft from our gearbox, because when I remove the old ones, there's a chance that our engine might dip in each of the corners where I remove the engine mounts. So I want to be sure that I don't put tension on the propeller shaft. So the first task is to remove the propeller shaft, and then I'm gonna take one mount at a time. So I'll start out with the easy one and then work my way up to the most difficult one of them. This is our propeller shaft, and in here it connects to the gearbox. Those are the bolts I'm gonna remove, but before doing that I want to ensure that the propeller shaft doesn't drop. So I've just put a beam across and then tightened it up with a strap, and then supported it with a small wooden block underneath. That should be enough to keep it steady. Now it's a good idea to, when you have to loosen the bolts, to set the gearbox in reverse, because then it locks the shaft, and that makes it a whole lot easier to remove. Even though the gear is in, the gear is in gear in reverse, you should be able to turn it slightly to hit or to get access to each bolt. What I just did after I loosened the bolts was that I just pulled the shaft a bit aft to ensure that there's a connector piece inside it, that those two are disconnected, because I don't want any damage on either our propeller shaft or the gear housing. So this is the front starboard engine mount. It's connected to the flooring, or whatever you call it, the housing in the engine bay, by 2 bolts. I have already removed those. But then again, it's connected to this piece right here, which sits into the engine. And that is connected by 4 bolts. Now, as I've already removed the first 2 bolts, I only need to remove these 4 to get the engine mount out. But before I started removing the bolts or the engine mounts, I have just supported the engine with a small, what do you call this in English? I don't know. Yeah, you know what it is. You can see it. And then a piece of plywood just underneath it. It should support the engine good enough for me to avoid that it kind of drops into the bay. Because I want it to remain as level as possible during the exchange of the engine mounts. That's the first one. It's pretty clear to see that this is the original. Look at that. It's completely corroded, and this is the one I thought was a good one. So I'm really glad that this job is getting done, because this is, yeah, seriously, look at that. Seriously, look at this. I'm not sure if you can see it, how much I can twist this. And I'm quite sure that if I pull hard enough, this is going off from the rubber inside. So yeah, just another proof that you... Look at that. I'm not sure if you can see it. That's just by wiggling it. Now, this is the old mount, and it's just a disaster waiting to happen. As you can see, all the rubber is in a really bad condition. But the worst part is that this is the rubber. And even though this is not a part of the structure itself, if this is starting to delaminate or de-attach to the metal, then think about what is happening at this place over here, the edges around. If that removes, or that attaches, then you have an engine with no support to your boat, meaning your engine would basically rattle and shatter itself apart and destroy, yeah, it could destroy essential parts of the boat. That right there is the old one and the new one, that's clear. I need to ensure that the level of this one is the same as this one, because it has to match in order for the propeller shaft to be able to sit the right place. So as you can see on this one, this nut is a bit above that level. I'm not exactly sure how much that actually means when installed, because I know the mounts are going to set a bit and lower themselves due to the weight of the engine. So I think that is just within, probably. If not, I could put in this one and this one. I think that's what I'm going to do. Then on top, when the bracket is installed, I'll put these very clever locking discs. You can see they got some grooves in it. So that's to ensure that the top bolt locks it all in place. Okay, so I'm about to align the propeller shaft with the engine itself, or the gearbox. And I noticed that there's a slight change in where those two are positioned in terms of each other. And I need to move the engine, I think about 1 or 2 millimeters to the starboard side. The way I'm going to do it, and I'm not sure if this is correct, but the way I'm going to do it is to loosen all the engine mount bolts, the ones that attaches it to the boat. And then I'm going to see if I can just slightly push it 1 or 2 millimeters to ensure the alignment with the propeller shaft. Not sure if that's the right way to do it, but if it works, it works. I am going to see if I can reattach our propeller shaft to the engine. And I can already see that there's a bit misalignment. So that's something I need to work on. See how that... Yeah. I think I have about almost 1 millimeter or 2. If I count on that the propeller shaft is absolutely straight. So I would have to top and bottom adjust it, but I need it pushed just slightly, just a bit to the starboard side. See how I'm gonna do that. Okay, so I'm about to position the engine, and of course the battery in the good camera died, but glad I have a phone that can record as well. But either way, the problem is that the engine was just slightly offset and needed to be pushed to the starboard side. And the way I did it was I was able to push this piece of wood in here and then just give it a good persuasion with a small hammer, and now it just looks like that is almost aligned. I think we have 0.05 of a millimeter or something like that to go. So I'm just gonna give it another small gentle like that. Let's see if that makes a difference. Not sure if you can see it, but it did actually. So I just need to make sure that the alignment is on the top side as well, and there I can see we need... No, that's okay. That's actually okay, because the propeller shaft has dropped just a bit. So that is really good. That is all done. So that is 1, 2 and 3 and 4 new engine mounts for this very well running Yanmar diesel. It's 30-year-olds, and I would say putting these on instead of these 4 is going to make a heck of a difference. So I'm very much looking forward to running this one and see how it feels.